Hello, I am the Gentlemanly Gamer, and welcome to the Undisputed Nerds YouTube channel. You're about to watch a clip from our podcast, which we do every week, and you can find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all of your other favourite podcast platforms. Don't forget to leave us a like and a subscribe on the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and we hope you enjoy the clip.
Cool. Shall we get on to Ms. Marvel?
Ms. Marvel, yes.
Cool. So if you're a new listener, normally what we like to do is split this into segments. What we're going to try to do is we'll try and keep time codes in the description so you can skip to certain bits. Of course, we'll be talking spoilers. So if you haven't seen the episode, make sure to pause the podcast right now, go watch it, and then come back. Welcome back. I guess the first thing I want to get out of the way is we have a rating system on the show. So normally we'll say if something is undisputed, which means it's great, it's good, or if it's disputed, which means not so great. First of all, let's get it out of the way. Undisputed or disputed for yourself, Rinzler?
I'm going to say undisputed. Undisputed.
Yeah. It felt tough.
Yes. So
indulge me.
I think it was highs and lows. There were some really amazing things, scenes, stuff we'll come on to in a bit that were like, oh my god, that was incredible. And then the rest wasn't like bad. It was just not. It sort of was a real peaks, and then it felt weird to then just go to mundane sort of stuff that we'll cover in a minute. But yeah, so I still really enjoyed it. And then again, this is the theme for today, coming from a very little knowledge, an introduction to a character, which we'll go through in a bit. I'm in. So I guess, undisputed in that sense.
Good. I would say it's undisputed for me. Feels really odd that the runtime for this is 40 minutes or close to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
There's some great stuff, like you mentioned, but it feels like it gets a bit stationary, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if it was a production thing or COVID got in the way or whatever, but it feels like there's a kind of everything starts slowing down in terms of like story progression and stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the visuals, the characters, and things of that nature. Do you want to go straight into characters?
Yep.
Super. So character-wise, of course, we've got Ms. Marvel herself, Kamala Khan. I think she's a great lead. Really relatable, really funny and stuff as well.
Yeah, she was really good, and I think the intro animation that she voiced, that straight away reminiscent of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, sort of when he's doodling and that kind of stuff, just straight into the character and like doing the thing they love. So just like that, whatever she's doing, I assume it's a YouTube animation or whatever in the universe, but she's doing that animation, explaining a story, and I couldn't tell whether it was like her animating like stop motion or whether she was doing like in After Effects or she was doing, but it was very high production value for what is a 16-year-old, but and then also to have like 100 views and one comment saying, I found this channel, it's amazing. But they weren't wrong. The animation was amazing, and whatever it was, a minute, 45 seconds, you're straight into this character's like super energetic, super bubbly, super like passionate about the subject matter and everything, and then that's like, okay, right, and then it almost straight, like you don't know, you've gone from nothing to straight into someone's passions and everything like that, and then you're following for the rest of the episode the drive for that passion, and they sold it in the first 45 seconds for that, and that's one of the highs, the undisputed parts, because it was just, oh right, okay, this is super bright, super colourful, no grey mess of anything. It was just like bang, 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 here we go. And then sort of the rest of it, then like you say, sort of slowed down in places, sort of was a bit static, and then it picked up again in other places.
Yeah, it's as you mentioned, the animation side of it is really fun, quirky, keeps you engaged. Um, Loads of comparisons, as you mentioned, Into the Spider-Verse. I hadn't even thought of, but until you say it, I think that the hobby and the passion of something adds an extra element to the character, because you're like, oh wow, they have something else besides just the machinations of the story, like, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think that's really cool. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of indie movies. So not so much an indie movie, but Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So many influences from that, I feel.
Yep.
At the same time, you've got something like Nora's something playlist is another movie that I thought of from years ago. But yeah, it's that kind of coming of age, finding yourself and sort of thing storyline, which I think is really cool. The other characters in this, so we've got Bruno, who's her friend, who makes all the gadgets and her cosplay and stuff.
Yeah, so is he 16 as well, and has just made his own like AI speaker to control the home? Like, I know we're in the world where there's super intelligence and all that, but just that scene kind of just randomly was like, yeah, here you go, I just made this for you. It's like, really?
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, okay, like, I know technology's a little bit more advanced because they've got a Tony Stark in that universe, but that doesn't mean everyone's instantly smarter. Like, this kid works in a convenience store, yet can make a smart speaker. Like, not everyone can do that.
No. But then on the flip side, then he, like, again, not to belittle it, but then later on he made gloves with LED lights on. So, so you've got this high up here, and then you've got some gloves with LED lights on. It's like there's a balance there.
Yeah, but I
that
feel
threw
like
me
that
a bit.
the Bruno's going to be the guy in the chair. Like, is exactly what I thought. Like, he's going to be the Ned to Spider-Man. Like, and again, Ned felt like he was a bit too smart to be just a random guy. To hack a Spider-Man suit felt a bit weird. But yeah, it felt like the guy in the chair is
The
Bruno.
guy in the chair with the bit of romance for the person that he's chairing, because there's the scene on the rooftop where they kind of, that's just when he shows her the LED gloves, and then there's that moment.
Yeah,
they longly pause for that awkward moment, and then they play fight. But I got the impression that was one of those, we've been friends for so long, and then there's going to be some relationship or peril at some point, because they're so he's going to be one of maybe the victims of an episode or something like that, the person in danger, and that's where that interest comes from Kamala to save him, because that sort of, I know it was only like 5 seconds, but it's like there's a love interest type thing going there, or I could just be massively off, and that wasn't what they were going for. But they don't put stuff in these things for no reason.
No, they sprinkle it in sometimes just to get a reaction, don't they? So, yeah, potentially. Like, what can I say? Like, based on her content, like, and based on the comic book version, Kamala makes a lot of fanfics, and some of those fanfics include if you blink you miss it, but there's a YouTube video she makes called Ant-Man and the Wasp Go on Romantic Paris Trip.
I did not see that.
So, which is kind of familiar to the comic book version, because she makes these comic book like fanfic stories and stuff. So I think in the comics she did one about Cyclops and Emma Frost, for example. They'd go on romantic trips and stuff, which Wolverine didn't like. But yeah, that she is someone who searches for romance, is what I was probably trying to get at. But yeah, of course we got introduced to Kamala's family, including her older brother, and her parents.
hmm
I have to say straight off the bat, the scene where her dad comes in as the Hulk had
Yeah.
me in stitches.
Oh, it was adorable and hilarious. He was
Absolutely.
he was so like in the moment trying to impress his daughter. I don't know where he's supposed to have got. I don't know if you've ever done green face paint, but that was an incredible job of green face paint on him. He was so like in that moment and trying to impress, and then
Yeah.
at the same time so heartbroken when it didn't have the payoff. Like in stitches, then all of a sudden like, dude, like you tried and it just crashed and burned and felt. And then she says she thinks she made him cry, sort of thing. And it's one of those like, as a dad, you'd be like, no, I'm fine, don't worry about it, carry on. And actually, probably really quite upset about it. But yeah, that scene was brilliant, absolutely hilarious.
I feel like he's going to be an absolute gem throughout this entire thing because, like,
Yeah.
even though his screen time is like absolutely minute, we've already seen him, impressed with a smart speaker. We've seen him. I think there was a scene where he's just dancing because the motion detector goes off on her phone,
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
dancing in the living room and stuff.
yeah.
And of course the Hulk scene. I feel like he's going to be like just the absolute gem in the rest of this season. And as you say, probably pull on the audience emotionally. Like, he doesn't have to do much, but he can still pull the audience in that way.
Yeah, well, totally like you say, the scene where he's talking to the smart speaker, trying to get it to understand him and turn the lights on, and Kamala's walking up the stairs. He's just off to the right, and you're supposed to be following Kamala, like going up the stairs. And I was just focused on him. I was just like, "What's he?" Well, this is hilarious. He's trying to get the speaker to work, and again, that worked really well with the way they were incorporating the like real events in like what is supposed to be the real environment with they've done it to death, a light bulb above someone's head in the real world. That worked really well with him shouting at a smart speaker to turn it off, and it turned it on, and it was brilliantly above her head. And that was just a nice, it didn't feel forced, like even though, like I say, everyone's done a light bulb above her head, it felt kind of a fresh approach. And whether that was just because it was someone turning a smart speaker on and it wasn't like, I don't know, it worked for me, that one.
It was done pretty well. I was just thinking, I wonder if they've drawn in on the game, the Avengers video game, knowing that her dad's a big part of the video. Well, I say a big part. He's again sort of the home-based character in that video game. I wonder if they're drawing a lot more inspirations from that as opposed to the comic book version.
So that is the only experience I've had with Ms. Marvel was from the game. Admittedly, I didn't get very far in the game, but that's how I know of her as a character before this show. So I think outside of that, I wouldn't have known anything about her. I guess I don't know whether I can ask this question, but maybe get to it later. Obviously, the game, she's very Stretch Armstrong in the show. It's energy. Well, it's not explained so far, but it's, I assume, energy based from the bracelet. Well, it's obviously from the bracelet, but that is obviously a deviation from the source material.
That's right. Yes. I guess now's a better time to talk about it. The power set is slightly different. So in this, they are constructions of her imagination. They're kind of crystallized.
The Green Lantern type ring sort of thing.
It does feel very sort of Green Lantern-esque in its delivery. I guess what's interesting as well is that there's this bracelet, this bangle, that she finds, which we find out used to belong to her grandmother. And of course, when she puts on the bracelet, there's a sequence where she falls backwards, and there's like these figures, like shadows, looking at her. And then she falls out of that. Say it again.
It wasn't the upside down.
No, it wasn't the Upside Down. Which again doesn't normally happen. Well, it doesn't happen in the comics. She normally she gets hit by something called Terrigen Mist, which opens up her Inhuman gene, which gives her
Mhm.
the stretching power and stuff. There's lots of theories going around about the bracelet, because there are bracelets in the comic book version. So, for example, there's two that a lot of people kind of narrowing it down to, which is either the quantum band, which I think is probably the safe bet considering how much they've mentioned Ant-Man in the
Mhm.
first episode.
Mhm.
And of course, quantum being linked to Ant-Man and the Wasp and the quantum realm, and we're going to get Quantum Mania soon and stuff. The other bands that some people think it is one called the Neg Band, which was worn by the first interpretation of Captain Marvel, which is Marvel, the
Mhm.
male version in the comics. So again, that would kind of tie nicely if it was like a Kree band or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you find the visuals kind of off-putting, or were you okay with
The
it?
the energy, what I'm going to
Yeah.
call it energy stuff. Yeah, that like all the animation, all the the stuff when they were talking about their plan and it was all animated, projected on the wall. All of that looked seamless and perfect
Hmm.
as far as I was concerned. And then when she's whatever it is throwing plates or whatever it is, like circular discs of energy
Yeah,
out
like
into the
weird
audience.
little, yeah.
Yeah, but also not in any sort of smooth form or anything, like really jaggedy and like almost like a 8-bit, not 8-bit, probably like a 16-bit or something like that, polygon type thing. It just
Exactly, yeah.
it looked weird. It didn't gel with me, that. And then the um the fact that this is supposed to be like a cosplay um uh um competition she's
Competition.
going in for. And I don't know, as an audience member, if I was there and looking at someone's cosplay, that wouldn't freak me out. What they were all very excitable for it. Like that isn't some expected stuff that you would see at a cosplay event. Like, oh, okay, you're just throwing out beams of energy. That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
like.
whoa.
But then I don't live in a world where there's real life superheroes and stuff like that. So it's not the norm for the population of the MCU.
Yeah, it was kind of bizarre. Almost like everyone was kind of drunk off, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, a soft drink or something. Like
Mm.
everyone was blown away by the littlest thing,
Yeah.
which I wonder is like an inside joke about conventions. Like you go to a convention, they mention like the most deadest movie ever made, and everyone goes crazy for it. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
it
Yeah.
could be one of those things. But I know a lot of people kind of blown away of like how the convention had so many sort of cosplays of slightly obscure characters like Groot. Like, how do people
Hmm.
know about Groot and um, well, the rest of the Guardians and things of that nature. Um,
Hmm.
and I find it hilarious that the idea that the rest of the world knows about Infinity War and Endgame just from Ant-Man being on a podcast. Like,
Yeah. 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 Which is also like a real throwaway. Like you said earlier, you blink and you
yeah,
miss. He's got a podcast, and then I was really hoping, and I haven't googled it. Is that a real thing? Have they made AntMan Podcast that I could go and listen to right
with
now
Paul Rudd, like,
with Paul Rudd? Yeah, exactly. Like, as you know, all those tidbits that they do these days with, like, you find a website that actually is an AntMan
a
Podcast
real
that they've
thing,
done.
yeah.
I haven't googled it. I don't want to, because in my head they have. That's a real thing.
What I find hilarious as well is that they've got like the slogans, like there was fan art or a card which had a drawing of Captain America and it's saying this is
Oh,
America's ass.
yeah, that was brilliant. Yes, I can't remember what the slogan was, but yeah, with a real like a massive circular bum as well. And there was a card with I can do this all day, I think, as well. Was there that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there was that as well. So yeah,
The idea that maybe, Scott has mentioned this on like a Joe Rogan podcast, like sort of thing,
yeah,
like, and
yeah.
I said to Captain America, "That's America's ass."
Yeah.
But yeah, that was fun. I guess everything after the convention kind of really starts to slow down and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which now I try and think about it, I'm struggling to remember because it's kind of like after that. What happens after she gets her powers? I don't think there's much left, really, is there? Like,
So there's like they don't really talk about it. So
yeah,
she does the thing. She's at the convention. She does the plates of energy, and then they cycle back with Bruno and her, but
mm,
they're not like, oh my gosh, like I've got these, like, considering how obsessed with Captain Marvel and powers and all this, it
mm.
was just like, I think it's even a throwaway comment, like as he's boosting her up on, she's like, oh, I've got powers now, like, oh, this is like the norm. There's no like,
And she
oh,
steps
this is
on it, doesn't
amazing,
she,
I'm so
to
excited.
like boost
Yeah,
herself? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But there's no like, it's this kind of, I don't know if she was, because I think she might say when she's climbing into the window, like, we'll talk about it tomorrow or something. So she's, and based on the time plan of what was supposed to be 9:25 and is now 11:55, she's bricking it from getting in trouble with parents, sort of thing. That she's like, we haven't got time to talk about this. I've got to get home because I'm in serious trouble.
Yeah.
And whether that's more like going to be in episode 2, they'll be like, so let's talk about last night, what happened, etc. And then it was the scene with the mum saying
Yeah.
how disappointed she was, and then I think that's it. Then I don't remember anything after that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it ends there, and then we got mid credits. But just before we do
Yeah.
get to the mid credits, one thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about Kamala's character, which I thought was a really, well, there's two things I wanted to mention, I guess. The first one being is the sequence where she goes dress shopping with her mum. I thought that was amazing, sort of like insight into that culture and that
Yeah.
part that lives in New York as well, like
Mhm.
the fact that they can get like kebab meat and things of that nature. So I really like that sequence. But the other one is, and this kind of is sort of, here's the funny thing, it's touched on in the show, but it's a real sort of character arc in the comic, which is Kamala feeling comfortable in her skin, and I hope
Mhm.
they kind of do more of it in the series itself, because with her powers being almost shape shifting in
Mhm.
the comic, she at one point mimics the look of Captain Marvel, blonde hair and
All right.
and things of that nature, and it takes like this amazing pep talk from her dad to kind of say she is beautiful the way she is, and she is
Mhm.
marvelous, excuse the pun, without having to turn herself into this version, that this type of
Mhm.
woman. So
Yep.
I think the show touched on it slightly with her seeming uncomfortable with the cosplay in certain
Mhm.
parts,
Yep.
like exposing her leg shape and things of that nature.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just really hope that they kind of go into that a little bit more, but I feel like because it's Marvel, they may be a bit scared to go to those sort of depths, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. They sort of, they talk about like the mum. I can't remember what her name is, but the mum is like, you're not dressing up like that because you're not wearing the skimpy outfits and that.
Mm.
And then I think in the scene at the end, she says something along those lines of, I don't know who this person is in front of me. You need to, you know, get to not get to know yourself, but something similar in that space of, you
Find
should
yourself or something,
find
yeah.
yourself, something like that. And if that is sort of a mini reference to what you're
Mm.
talking about, in like, that's whether, don't copy being another superhero, kind of find yourself, do your own thing. but then at the same time, you're not allowed to go backpacking around Europe or whatever it was that the other person did in the
Yeah.
community that is massively frowned upon. So it was, I agree, it was a great scene as well, the shopping scene, to get that dynamic of mother-daughter and that relationship into that culture and everything on those lines that isn't something I'm familiar with. But you understood the mother-daughter relationship dynamic from that scene mostly, and then all the other sort of tidbits around, to the point where I think it's after that scene where the mum's actually made an outfit. She made the Hulk outfit for him. Is that after those stuff?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so she is trying to engage. And then that's when, again, it was like, well, you've really shot yourself in the foot there. Surely if you were so keen to go, I know it's difficult because thinking back when I'm 16, would I want to go to a convention with my dad as the Hulk? If that was the Hulk, yeah, then yeah. But they were trying, and from the previous scene, you sort of didn't think the mum was gonna get involved in it because she was saying how the mum hates all the stuff that she likes and everything. So and whether that's the power of the brother because he said he'd put a word in, and or what, but that's all off camera, so you don't know what he said. I think the mum's supposed to sort of be the villain almost in this episode, but she had a good arc as well. But still, like that stern mum that you've seen a few times in stuff, that like, okay, you're gonna have to. She's gonna get won over at some point. You've got to think.
Yeah.
But I did have a question. So the we're going back to the bracelets you were talking about.
Yeah.
And it being from the grandma. It's the so when those bracelets come, the mum, again, I should know her name, but I'm going to call her the mum, was all like, when the bracelet came out, she was like, that is junk. Almost like she knew what it... I got the impression she was like, I've seen that before. You don't want that. Go and hide that in the attic because that is junk. And I couldn't say if that was she knew what the bracelet was, or her relationship to her mum, and her mum is always sending her junk and got a house of junk, etc. But is the grandma a character in the comic source material at any point, or is that a character for the show?
I don't remember the grandmother. I've only read a few Miss Marvel issues themselves. A lot of the other stuff I've read is where she's been in team up books, like All New or different Avengers. But I think what they're alluding to is I think it might have been not long after she has a driving test and she accidentally crashes the car. I think they mention in the car journey that Kamala's always sort of daydreaming like her grandmother, and this whole idea that her grandmother had kooky ideas and stuff. I think it's something along those lines they say. Which, as you probably pointed out, maybe, I guess this is the theory, is that the grandmother had these powers with the bracelet and wanted to bestow them onto Kamala's mum, but Kamala's mum not believing, the pitch. And I guess in a way, the grandmother's still trying to bestow that bracelet or power onto someone else. I think it might be like what's the word I'm looking for? I guess it's kind of like an Avatar: The Last Airbender, like the powers like inherited to the next person, sort of thing. Which explains all those shadows and eyes looking at Kamala when she falls. Like maybe that's her like whole ancestors like looking, or wielders of the bracelet sort of idea.
Or like she tried and the mum couldn't wield the power, like an Encanto side of things, and then she's like, oh, so she's then that's why she has a real disdain for this kind of thing, and therefore that's why she's not allowing her to do superhero-y stuff, because she knows it's in the bloodline. She couldn't wield the power of the bracelet, whether it's from the bracelet or whatnot. because it's obviously if it's energy based, it's not. They might go with it's your inner energy type thing, and the bracelet is the thing that takes that inner energy and powers it, sort of thing. And the mum couldn't do it. Maybe
I like
it's
that.
very
Yeah.
out there, weird. Not weird. We're very out there on the spot thought. As you were talking, I was theorizing as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely something in that generational arc they've got going there.
Yeah, certainly. Like now that I think about it, this whole phase, we've already had Shang-Chi inherit the 10 rings, you know,
Mm-hmm.
cosmic item bestowed to him. And we've also seen Dame Whitman, I think his surname is, the Black Knight from at the end of Eternals inherit his black sword, dark sword from his family. So yeah, I wonder if this is kind of like they're doing this whole new age of heroes that are sort of bestowed these new, well, not new, but ancient items. Which,
yeah.
Mm.
It's an interesting thought.
Yeah, there we go. I guess we've kind of covered everything. We've covered characters, visuals. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap everything up?
Mid-credit sting.
Oh, mid-credits, great reminder, yes. Do you remember the DOD?
From Spider-Man,
yes,
is where I remember him from, and then I've had to rack my brains because I'm watching Succession at the moment, and he's in that. I was like, he's not from
really?
Succession. He's from Spider-Man, and I only then remember him being in the scene at the very beginning where they arrest Peter Parker, and
Yes.
I can't remember anything that he said that would be like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I couldn't remember what department he was from or anything along those lines. I just recognized him as a character, and like, okay. And obviously they're bringing him in for interrogation, but then that didn't go anywhere in Spider-Man. So this looks like it's going to play a bit more of a part in here.
Yeah, the Department of Damage, the DOD, which is funny because like they've been in the MCU for some time. Like they, I think there's like again, I can't remember where it was, but there's like posters that they're funded by the government and Tony Stark to help with damages and things like that happen to the city during these like fights and events and stuff. But what's weird is like they've gone from like this construction, agency into like a federal sort of, agency sort of idea. Like they have police and they can enforce like things and stuff. Which I guess in a weird way kind of makes them the bad corporation sort of, because now Shield is, I don't even know where Shield is anymore, but yeah, I guess they're kind of like the new bad corporate entity to face.
Do they, this is really testing my memory, in the first Tom Holland solo movie,
Homecoming
thing, Batman, can't remember his name, Michael Keaton.
Keaton, yes.
Yeah, they are like getting all the stuff out, and there's a government agency that comes in and like says we're locking this down. That isn't them.
I believe that is them before.
That is them.
Yeah, I think that might be. I'm pretty sure that is the DOD in the opening. It's with a lady.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're claiming all of the Chitauri
yes
tech and debris and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm pretty sure it's them in that, but I'm 100% sure they didn't say their Shield.
Yes, I don't. I don't remember them saying that. It was definitely not something that I'd heard of before at the point that they came in. So that, but I guess interesting that if they're the Department of Damage, like which technically hasn't done any damage yet, apart from which we haven't talked about that massive hammer swinging into the school kid that is
Yes.
dressed as Captain Marvel and doing 0 damage, and then also pinning her against the wall, and she just fell down. I was like, yeah, I'm all right. Like, it's probably a foam hammer. I'm going to pretend it's that, because otherwise, how did that not? And then a massive Ant-Man head as well. Just like
That
was
wouldn't
I think
stop
that was
rolling.
comical.
Yeah, it wouldn't stop rolling. Like, I
No.
thought once it destroyed one thing, I was like, okay, fair enough. And then it just like kept going, and I was like, how much momentum has that head got? Like, Jesus.
So
But yeah, I honestly thought when that hammer was swinging for her, I thought Kamala's gonna kind of
push her out the
move
way.
her out the way, yeah,
Mhm.
sort of thing, instead of just
with
shouting.
like an energy hand, like she did with the catch, like just push her
Yeah.
that way, and that would have been it.
But I guess the catching thing is kind of a Miss Marvel staple, like,
Mhm.
stretching out and catching her and breaking the fall. So I guess they had to think of some inventive way to do it. But yeah, that was a real odd sequence.
So that's the damage that she's currently done is break Thor's polystyrene hammer and a rolling Ant-Man head. So that's why she's in trouble. But like you said, that it shouldn't have had that much momentum, because there was so many flat sides that it could have got stuck on and jammed on, that it shouldn't have kept rolling.
I mean, when it exploded the popcorn machine, I was like, okay, yay, hilarious.
Yeah.
But then it kept going, and then it blew up like eventually a confetti machine, and I was just like, oh, that's where it ended. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, like, yeah, bizarre.
There was just that one, wasn't there? I didn't, because you'd said stay for the credits, so I did, because I've done that before. Not all of their TV series have done it until later on in the series. So have one first episode, and then I turned it off. So there's only that one, isn't there? There's only that one.
I believe so, yeah, because there's 2 ways to find out. The first one is if it doesn't suggest, like, Disney doesn't have that little pop-up that suggests either something else or the next episode. That there's a reason why. Also, I think it was something ridiculous, like 6 minutes of credits when the episode ended, and I was like, there's got to be a stinger in there somewhere. So I fast forward till I got it.
Yeah, fair enough. It's like the lights coming on in cinema; they don't come on if there's another scene.
Very true. A man talking from experience.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Cool. So I guess that's everything. We've covered everything in episode 1. Let us know your theories. Do you think the magic band is something that Kamala has inherited? If you think it's got some other special powers, let us know in the comments down below. As always, you can get in touch with us on Twitter, Instagram, at undisputed_nerds. There you go. Made sure I remembered. You could also find us on Facebook, Undisputed Nerds, of course, on Facebook. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also, we have a second channel called Undisputed Nerds Strike Again. You'll find not only clips from our original podcast, but you'll also find tips and bits there as a series. Sadly, fun story, I wasn't able to upload the full version of the podcast due to hotel Wi-Fi not being fantastic. So I had to segment the show to get it uploaded. So if you were missing tips and bits from the last couple of episodes, make sure to check out our second channel where you'll find those features. I'm thinking of maybe uploading the unedited version maybe to our Patreon or something. If you're interested in that, let us know in the comments, of course. And lastly, you can email us nerdsundisputed@gmail.com. That's right, our email address is nerdsundisputed@gmail.com. Rinzler, I have to say again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the podcast. Have you had a great time?
I have indeed, Zane. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
Our episodes always do well when you're here as well. I'm saying it. I've looked at the numbers, and there's
It's good they want to see how much of a fool I can make with pretending I know what I'm talking about.
No, not at all. But then again, I don't know. It's always you and GG, so maybe I'm the denominator in all of this. You never know.
No pressure on the numbers then.
But as always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll no doubt catch you next week. Ta-ta for now.
Bye-bye.